What's up, everybody? Hello. Welcome to the Hustling Sideways podcast. I'm Alan Halas. I'm a music writer.
And I'm Jim Love, and I'm a keynote and motivational speaker.
And this is
And
episode 81.
81, yes, it is. We are back. We're ready for the next 10. And we're currently sitting in Milwaukee, well, in three different rooms, but
Yeah.
it is about to storm. So if y'all are, hold on to your windows, but it's coming down, and a lot of canceled volleyball happening in Milwaukee tonight, and that's the vibe. Yeah, that lighting, but it got dark. It was like a beautiful day. It was like 80 degrees today. I walked outside for like a half hour, and then now it's just not that. So that's why we live here, man. That's it.
Nothing but doom and gloom. That's what we definitely bring to the podcast for sure. And I can tell that I don't think there's gonna be any power outage, knock on wood, but if there is, you will see my entire my screen will stay lit, but everything, because my camera is plugged in and all of that, like everything's just gonna go completely out.
It's
So
gonna be like a
we'll
horror
see what
movie.
happens.
I kind of rooting for it. No offense, but that'd be fun to watch.
Oh no, it's gonna be amazing if you're watching on YouTube or wherever you're watching and things just completely go out. Like this may be the best podcast. We'll see because there's no me in it.
That's right.
Uh,
There's a constant there. I like that. Yeah.
yeah. But in the meantime, we do have an amazing guest and somebody that was able to join us on a very last minute, let me say, and somebody actually that's been on my radar for a very long time to have on the podcast because we used to work together. And now both of us don't work at the publication that we worked at. But today we've got Mike Burmesch, who is a graphic designer by day and also is the owner of MBSquared Photography. And he specializes in iPhone photography. We'll talk about that in just a second. But Michael, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We don't have an applause button. We
That's
we
our that's
really
our
we say that
button.
every time, but it never happens. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Thanks. Yeah, happy to be here.
yeah. It's funny. We are all in Milwaukee. We are all very close, but I think the rain, we were just like, you know what? It's better if we don't. So
Yeah, it was Alan. It was a funny way to do. I mean, not come over. That's pretty much what it's.
I
It's
actually
fine.
texted you explicitly and I said, do not show up today.
Don't
So
be
that
here.
was,
Yeah, and here
yeah.
I am.
So, Mike, so we've known each other from working together, and he was a graphic designer for the publication that I was at and did some amazing work. But then I think within probably the first couple months, I found out that you shoot photography, but exclusively on your iPhone. And we have tons of questions about that. But before we really get into it, tell me a little bit kind of about your background. What got you kind of into like art, creative things in general to start?
Art creative things has been lifelong, honestly. It's funny, graphic design especially. It's kind of funny. I think since I was a kid, I knew I'd get into graphic design. I remember 1992 going to see Aladdin in the theaters, and I absolutely loved it. Still my number one favorite film. We're talking about the animated one. I
Yeah.
haven't even watched the live action one yet. No interest, honestly. Why ruin a good thing? But I remember I was just like I'd come home and design movie posters for it, like my own take on it. I'd make mixtapes and make my own, artwork for those. So when college rolled along and I went to my ed, graphic design was an easy choice for me. It was just kind of natural. So graduated in 2008. Worked for a couple of years at a lab created gemstone company doing
Oh,
catalog work and e-commerce, and then I was active with the then AIDS Resource Center for quite a few years. Lost a friend to AIDS in 2008, so when they were hiring, pretty natural fit for me. Worked there for 10 years, and then after that moved on to the publication, and now actually full time I'm doing vehicle wraps and large format printing, signage, vinyl graphics, you name it. So kind of an interesting little trajectory there.
yeah, definitely a little bit of bouncing around, but always in the creative realm for sure. Um, that's cool that you were doing movie posters and things like that for yourselves. I remember I used to make like when you had the burned CDs, like libs, like the light scribe thing. I would
Yeah.
spend way too much time like developing those, but not to the point where I was like hand drawing mixtapes or anything like that.
Yeah.
So
And I'm like the opposite of creative, so this is all fascinating to me. I was really not good at this, but I had friends that really are, and friends that do it now. So I love hearing how that journey can set you up to where you're at now, and it's a different trajectory for everyone, which is really cool and unique.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember
for
even in
sure.
high school, my first taste of Photoshop was Photoshop 7 on a PC,
Oh yeah,
and just kind of grew with it from there. So I've seen every iteration of Photoshop and Creative Cloud since, since then. So
So at what point does photography come into the mix? Because I'm assuming that it probably happened before iPhones were really powerful enough to shoot really good photos.
yeah, when I really got into photography, I was shooting on a iPhone 4S. Was my first one. That was back in like 2012, 2013. Photography was purely accidental. I really wasn't trained in it. I just had my phone with me and I did a lot of traveling on the weekends. Manitowoc, Sheboygan, Eau Claire, Wausau, wherever. I really enjoyed hitting the road and just kind of checking out the sites, checking out, maybe do some antiquing, check out museums, just check out the lake, local life, whatever. And it was always great because, I'd pretty much get up in the morning, grab a Gatorade, pack of mixed nuts or something, and literally just go until I ran out of gas, or until the sunset. And it was always interesting, because you'd run into people. If I stopped for a bite to eat, it'd be like, hey, where should I go shoot? The locals always knew the really cool spots to go shoot, or have
Hmm.
fun with the camera. And really having my phone on me, there were like no limits. So
Yeah.
and that was the thing. It was purely accidental. I just took an interest in it. And once I started shooting and kind of having fun with it and exploring what the phone was capable of, it just the more I got into it, the more I really enjoyed it. And kind of
Right.
started to boycott the bigger cameras. Like, really don't need a DSLR nor want one at this point. So yeah, it just I haven't been able to get rid of that. you know.
So like I'm curious, I feel like we all are still learning like the capability of every iPhone that's newer. Like were there some wild things you found out that no one else knew about of like as you're finagling with the picture and you realize there's this one setting that oh my goodness that makes this picture look incredible.
Not really. To be honest, it's interesting as the phones have progressed because I have an 11 now.
Hmm.
Even then, I'm not like running out and buying the newest, greatest iPhone. The only reason I had a 4S, um, which eventually just kind of phased out. I needed to get a new one. Got a 6S, which I lost on a breakwater, um, of course. So,
Got it.
and then eventually got my 11. And to be honest, the 11 is like the first one with like the two cameras on there, like the wide
Hmm.
angle. And honestly, I hate the wide angle feature. I played with it before and I realized once you start messing with the multiple camera feature on the phone, you lose resolution.
Hmm.
And so I don't really mess with it much, but it's funny because even when I had the 6S, I would get like the attachable lenses for it. I think I had Allo Clip to start with or something, and then eventually got myself like a moment system, which was really nice, a little more pricey, but fun to play with the fisheye and wide angle and macro. Um, and the nice thing was is once I had them, you pretty much had them. All you needed to do was change the faceplate. But really, the cool thing with the phones, the thing I like is having everything at your fingertips. And I do have an app for the phone that I use. It's called Camera Plus that I really enjoy
Okay.
because I can actually with my fingers as I'm taking a shot, literally change the settings on my phone right there with just a couple swipes to get the
Huh.
effects or the look that I want or the style that I'm going for, right there.
For
Changing
sure.
ISO, etc. Um,
Yeah. Okay. And also, I mean, I think, you said 2014-ish roughly that you started, right?
yeah.
So this is like early years of Instagram where everybody kind of thought they were a photographer, where we had like a million filters that we were like, oh, if we put this on this and we saturate the hell out of it, it's gonna look artsy and cool and different. Was that any kind of a catalyst into like, immediately getting into this, like being able to share that on Instagram, or was this kind of was that kind of an afterthought?
No, Instagram definitely kind of propelled it, I'd say. because it was just one of those things like, and I didn't really like using, I sometimes I'd use the Instagram filters, but a lot of what I was posting, more like the artistic shots and stuff that I was doing, was more so just the raw, or something that
Mhm.
I would edit on the phone, not necessarily through the Instagram settings. Um, because I kind of knew what I wanted to achieve with the shot.
Mhm.
So, but Instagram was definitely a place where I definitely, started to gain interest in it, or people would, be interested in what I was doing with it. And so I just kind of kept posting, and that's really what kind of propelled it. Because once people started to notice it, then people were asking for it, either printed or for other purposes.
Yeah. What was that? I was gonna ask, like, I'm sure that happened pretty organically. What was like did you remember the first time someone commented or DM'd you of like, this is amazing, can I have it? Like what was that like?
Yeah, there were a few instances where they would just kind of pop up here and there where someone would see it, either other side of the globe, someone would see
Yeah.
something and be like, "Hey, this is awesome. Can we use this for something?"
Yeah.
A lot of times too it was local because I was making sure to do tags and stuff appropriately. So if I was in Kenosha, tagging, the chamber down there or visitor center
Mhm.
down there, stuff like that. People were noticing it that way. Wisconsin Historical Society is a great one. I still tag them frequently when I take shots. They were really the ones who were getting noticed. As far as printing went, start off a lot of times it was family, like, hey, this is great. Can we have this for something?
Mhm.
Um, but once I started to actually turn it into a business,
Yeah.
which really just started with a gallery show back in 2019. I always kind of joked I didn't want to turn it into a business because I I don't want to say I didn't feel like I was much of a people person. I mean, I am. I'm definitely outgoing. But I always kind of joke like it would be one thing if I could just shut my studio back bedroom door and just slide prints out from under the door and be like, here you go, instead of having to actually be like a persona or a face, and actually like peddle my artwork.
Right.
It's very different doing that, especially being very introverted. Like I'm a very introverted at my markets. It's funny, like by the time I'm set up and halfway through a market, I start to kind of sundown a little bit, like, okay, can only handle a few more hours of people, Um, and but I mean I love it. But that being said, my first real time where I really kind of noticed I was onto something was I had a gallery showing. I was showing at Moore Bakery and Cafe when it was on in the Lincoln Warehouse. I was really good friends with Tracy because I was eating gluten free at the time. Um, and we had like 20 of my pieces framed in the cafe there, and I had extras. Like I printed multiples of everything because the larger prints I would hand title and sign. And
Mhm.
I just, I threw some backing board and some slips and just threw them in a bin and invited people out to come check out the show. And I ended up selling like half the bin. And I was just like,
Wow.
oh, okay, like maybe I have something here. So very quickly established the business and started to book some markets just to see what happened with it. And that was August of 2019. So
Mhm.
it was kind of a rough time to get started, because I only had like three or four markets, um,
Mhm.
in 2019, and then 2020 hit, and it's just like the whole world shut down. Um,
Yeah.
which on one hand was kind of nice for me for the fact that there wasn't that pressure to just like jump into it. I kind of had to navigate through and connect with people virtually,
Mhm.
So a lot of like sometimes there'd be those places like there was a come together Milwaukee market that would do get makers together throughout Milwaukee virtually and do Instagram sales.
Mhm.
So I met people through that, and then once we all started to kind of get back together in person, I went from doing like 10 maybe 20 markets a year to now I mean easily I'm booking like 45, 50 a year.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow, that's almost every weekend that you're at, or every week of the year there's something.
yeah.
Um, and that is incredible in itself that it is kind of ballooned out to that. But kind of piggybacking off of Jim with those initial those first couple markets, did you get any kind of flack initially with people saying, well, why would I want this? It was shot on like a phone. Because I think that was the original kind of thought from a lot of people was, Apple was pushing like it can be as good as a camera. And I think there were a lot of purists that were also like, it's just a camera, you know what I mean? So did you get anybody that was like very overt about like, well, why would I want something that I could shoot that myself or anything like that?
You know what? Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. If it was from anyone, it was really the purists. But I
Hmm.
think most people who appreciated it for what it was, or it was just like a shot's a shot regardless of how it was taken.
Mhm.
Um, they really appreciated it for the view, you know.
Hmm.
But yeah, there were definitely some purists who were like, you're just a phone photographer, move
Right.
over. There was definitely some of that, especially trying to network, there was a lot of that. But I think overall, um, 90% of people, 95% of people honestly are like,
Mhm.
it's kind of cool what you're doing or what you can
Yeah,
achieve, you
yeah.
know.
Oh yeah,
I,
absolutely. And I am definitely guilty of that a little bit because there's like this unneeded pretense that comes with like saying it's an iPhone photo or a phone photo, right? And the first time I actually saw, I think anything that I knew that you shot, it was a cover for a magazine that for a publication that we worked at. And I looked and the cover was and it was like blown up on the wall because it was actually like one that we hung on the wall too. But it was just a photo of drinks at Boone and Crockett and I went, "Oh yeah, it looks great." And somebody was like, "Yeah, oh Mike shot that." And I was like, "Oh, really? I didn't know that he shot photos." And he's like, "Yeah, he uses his phone for it." And
Yeah,
then my mind was blown because I was like, "Oh, that's like the cover of the magazine is shot
yeah,
using a phone." And
yeah.
then maybe like I don't know, I guess the little bit of like photography purist in me immediately was like, I guess I really don't need this Canon that I bought. You know what I mean? Like, because I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that looks really, really good." And it was shot, just by itself, you know?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
um, expanding the marketplace kind of thing too, and networking out, and having your own system kind of set up. Um, like how receptive were people initially when it came to like setting up shows? Did somebody kind of teach you the ins and outs of like, okay, set up your booth this way, or like kind of design it? Or was there a lot of like going around the markets and kind of observing like, okay, I like that, let me take part of that, and kind of
I
picking up as you went along?
I really need to do a then versus now with my booth setup. My
Mhm.
first market was October of 2019. It was with John, with he's now with How to Craft Fair. About
Mhm.
He ran Brew City Crafters, and I remember I just had my table kind of set up, like my bins with my prints and a few framed pieces and a banner on the front of it. And he took one look because I was like, yeah, this is what I'm thinking for my booth. And he's like, that's nice, but you really need to go vertical. Like you need displays.
Mhm.
And I remember like, I think on Amazon, I just ordered some cheap grid wire panels, heavy as hell. Don't know if I can say that, but like they were awkward because I had to like put them in my car diagonally. I got a little Kia Soul, and so I had to like fold the seats down and wedge them in there, and
Oh, jeez.
they weren't slipping out the window or anything like that, and that those first few markets were rough, but it was kind of nice having the graphic design background and kind of a in my head a way of doing like visual displays and stuff very
Mhm.
quickly. I could see what other people were doing. I could see other people were having schedules of their upcoming markets. People were having signage, on pricing and stuff like that set up in their space. I was able to really kind of navigate through that easily, and after a few markets really figure out what I wanted to do with the space in the booth. I mean, and now I've
Mhm.
got a system. It's still pretty much my table, and then I've got panels, but I splurged. Once I really started to make some money off the business, I splurged and kind of poured back into it where I got lighting. I got some really good heavy duty. They're aluminum with stainless steel wiring for like framed artwork pieces
Mhm.
that actually break down and fold. So
Mhm.
like I use those for my markets now. So I've got a very versatile setup now, where I can
Sure.
do as small as a table, I can do as large as like a 10 by 10 booth, easy, no problem. And really be versatile with it. And so I think definitely having that design background has made it easier for me to really kind of showcase my work.
Good point.
Yeah.
Play
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
virtual merchandiser.
Yeah. It's cool. It's good
Yeah.
to have, I mean, when folks' background in your career really dovetails into what you're doing as like a passion project on the side, we always like it's unique when that doesn't always happen, when you can kind of relate one to the other. But I bet that helped you a ton and to get noticed and you're like, this actually looks aesthetically pleasing in terms of design, and now people can see the great work that I've done. So I think that's a huge piece of it. And if I'm walking up to a booth, to have that really be displayed, like that's eye catching. I'm like, I want to see what's going on over here, regardless of whether or not I'm, if I buy something or not. I just want to check it out. So that's it. Did you find like this design background hitting other elements of what you're doing too, or does it sort of naturally maybe happen your
Oh,
subconscious? Yeah,
yeah, it
that's
wasn't just the boot space. It was like it was every printed piece, the signage, the handout, stuff like that. But even like social media, I used to
yeah.
do a lot of social media when I was at the AIDS Resource Center because I worked closely with the team there on the social media. So I was always doing stuff for Facebook, Instagram, any of our
Mhm.
special events posting, stuff like that. And I'd always putz with stuff on the side. So everyone think you don't think about that with your side hustle being kind of a full-time job and really,
Mhm.
wearing every single hat you need to,
Oh,
finances and
you.
everything else, and webmaster and all this, that's the thing. When it came to branding the website and social media and the booth and the space and the experience, it all really comes together as one. And it
Mhm.
is kind of a constant, you know, what do I need to do for the business tonight?
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
So
no, trust me. Jim and I both know about all too well about that for sure.
yeah.
And we talk about that a lot on the show, just all the different things that go into the logistics of making things happen.
Yeah.
Speaking of the logistics of a show day for you, what time is usually like, how early do you have to be there to set up for things? And what kind of I'm sure you've got a routine now for like a day in the life of, when you have an event, what does that kind of look like for you?
It starts off making coffee the night before because I'm not going to do that in the morning. No, seriously, like, most of your markets are like 9 to 3, 10 to 4. Setup usually starts 2 hours beforehand, depending on what kind of drive I have to the venue. I'm up as early as 5:30, 6 o'clock out the door, car packed by 7,
Hmm.
and then going where I need to go. Um, and setup, I can get it set up, I'd say, in about an hour and a half. Be it either the table setting, which I'll wrap my panels around, or more of a 10 by 10. Obviously, in a larger space, I can display more on the panels. But once I get set up, usually I'll post to my social media, where I'm at, what I'm doing for the day. And then, a market will go, like I said, 10, 9 to 3, 10 to 4. Once that wraps up, usually I can be packed up within 30, 45 minutes, have
Mhm.
everything back in the car, and then it's just a matter of getting home, and then
Hmm.
and I'm the kind of person, like, once I have a market, I do everything I need to right away, like that day. I'll sit down
Hmm.
at my computer, balance out the ledger, get everything done for the day that I need to, any checks, cash, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, that way it's just done. That day
Yeah.
is just done. I can move on to the next day.
Yeah.
Um,
Have you
so
have you have you ever had to say no to going? Like, I mean, like whether it be time or just like not aligned with maybe what you're hoping to get out of it. Like, because I know we've talked about folks kind of a brand and maybe are just like, this isn't maybe my spot, or have you ever run into anything like that before?
oh, for sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I mean, and it's interesting too, because I'm a very out artist, like with my artwork.
Mm,
I do have a couple more pride focused pieces. It's
mm,
funny, actually. Ryan with Milwaukee Makers Market. I don't want to say he outed me as a maker, but I think he kind of pushed me into the forefront. He was doing an interview with NPR, and he was talking about the Makers Market. And he's like, "Yeah, we've got a really great LGBTQ artist, Michael, with MBSquared Photography." And I was like, "Did he just out my entire
Was it? Was
business?" Like, I mean, I've
it?
comfortably been out since like 2012, 2008, but it's just like, as a business, I never really thought of being someone where it's like, my identity also spilled
Yeah.
into the business, where
Hmm.
people were finding me because of it. But like with my artwork, like my pride stuff, I do donate back to the LGBTQ community through the
Uh,
sales of that stuff.
mhm.
So once he kind of said that, I was like, that's actually probably something I should be playing off of,
Mm,
like actually putting out into a spotlight. Um,
mhm.
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Because it's just like, and I've noticed that more and more. I just had a Pride Market on Saturday, which was very well attended. Uh,
Mhm.
and it was such an amazing day. Like, even just for me as an artist, like, I did exceedingly well with it.
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
was just kind of one of those things where it's like, what, the more I can bring the most true version of myself to a market or a setting, and hit that audience, the better I'm going to do, as an
Yeah,
artist,
yeah.
um,
For
or
sure.
with the business. So yeah, I definitely do kind of search those venues out, those types of markets out.
Mhm.
And yeah, there's definitely somewhere I'm like, that's just not for me. you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done that before too, because that's the thing. It's not just the markets. It's like, I do markets. I do a lot of gallery shows where I'm shipping stuff, throughout the state for gallery shows and whatnot. So it's kind of being picky on that too. Even just consignment. I do a lot of consignment work as well. And, sometimes I'll go check out a shop and be like, this just isn't my store, you know?
Yeah.
Um, I don't want to be next to certain items or products,
Mhm.
with my
Yeah, for sure.
work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I do have to be kind of choosy on that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's almost kind of like an extension too of like a personal brand is to be like the people around you, like the company you keep kind of thing too in a market, whether it's, being located next to somebody that you don't want to be around or anything like that, or just like, yeah, markets that don't really fit what you're kind of doing. Um, I want to pivot a little bit though. I want to get kind of in the weeds on something. And so you said that social media is a big component of what you're doing. I work a lot in social. Obviously, Jim does some stuff with his brand online and stuff like that too. With like all of the changes that have happened on like let's say Instagram, where you know
Oh, I think
it's
we
not
lost.
as easy to discover somebody right now. Like can't really go search a hashtag, give you new stuff. Did we lose me?
Oh, you're
Oh,
back. I think you're
I'm
back.
back. Okay. All right,
Yeah.
picking it up there. Um, so I wanted to get in the weeds a little bit on something too, Mike, because you built a following using social media, and see, I told you guys the power was going to go out or something was going to,
All
yeah,
good.
no, um, building a following, and with all the changes that are happening with like Instagram, where it's not as easy to like find somebody just using a hashtag anymore. Have you had to like study up on social media on like what's changing on things to kind of like strategize around that as to how you can, position your business in there and still find a way to get discovered?
Oh, for sure. And it's interesting. Social media is an interesting thing for me because actually, back before I really launched, well, I mean, kind of in the middle of my business launch, I gave up social media entirely.
Hmm.
Right before the pandemic, actually, I gave up both Facebook and Instagram for like 3 years,
Mhm.
and I absolutely loved it. Uh, Primarily giving up Facebook, especially, like I didn't miss it. And I had the Instagram account and I would primarily post on Instagram. Instagram was kind of always my thing. That was the one I really liked. Facebook I gave up entirely, but it was one of those things. I know when Facebook bought out Instagram, for me to do certain things on Instagram, I needed to kind of get back onto Facebook to prove that I was an individual and a real person and all that good jazz.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because I remember too, for a while there, with the account that I had from when I first started Facebook, like 2008, 2009. I felt like my business was getting seen a lot easier than it was starting up a brand new, Facebook business page in like
Right.
what, 2022. you
Yeah.
know the Instagram was going really strong, but Facebook, it definitely, I was like, oh, I see, this is a totally different ballgame now.
Yeah.
um so I do get that, and it's interesting, even Instagram, seeing how much that's changed, because I remember when I first started taking shots, I didn't have the business account on Instagram, I just had my personal, and it was
Hmm.
a very different following, or even foundation for building that social media platform, or page, following on Instagram back in the day than it is now. I
Yeah.
feel like you keep charging forward with it, but it keeps getting harder and harder and
Hmm.
harder and harder. Especially now that uh, Facebook, I think, is kind of taken over everything.
Hmm.
Whatever they call it now.
Yeah.
I really don't care anymore. Yeah, it's just like I do a lot of boosting sometimes when I come out with like really strong new pieces. I might boost a post, or if I do like a giveaway or something for Milwaukee Day, that kind of stuff, I might boost something. I never spend a lot, but I've kind of noticed, like when I boost, it seems to be more so than not my followers getting the boost. I'm
Yeah.
like, why am I spending money for my own followers to see my own work? You know,
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
totally. That is,
um,
I am definitely in that same boat with stuff
yeah,
and like actually trying to discover new music too. Like if you
yeah,
click on a like the new music hashtag now, if you tap on that, it doesn't show you like recent posts. It'll just show you like the top things, which will be like new music from like, big artists that are already like
Mhm.
internationally known. So it does me like no good, anymore. So
yeah.
yeah,
And
it's been
hashtags,
crazy.
like hashtags even have changed. I remember back in the day when I first started, you wanted to, what was it, the 30 hashtag max? I was
Mhm.
maxing out on hashtags, like love, photo of the day, that kind of stuff,
Uh,
And
yeah.
nowadays it's like what, 4 or 5? Otherwise, you kind of get chewed up by it, or it doesn't
Yeah.
propel.
Yeah.
It's interesting because saves are so much better than a like, stuff like that. It's always evolving and changing. Even just the time you post in the day, affects it all. And it's just like, yeah, keeping up on it, it's kind of a pain in the butt. It is
Oh
paying
yeah.
off though. I feel like my Instagram, I will admit the more attention I give it, um, the more it grows. And I can honestly
Mhm.
say that because I kind of went, gosh, what, 2 years ago, I maybe had what, like 600 followers on Instagram. Within like a year, I got up to like 800. And then like within the last year, I mean, I'm sitting right under like 1100 now.
Mhm.
Nice.
I feel like it is growing. It's
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
growing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then again, too, I'm pouring more into it.
Right. I was gonna say then and it's also like an uphill climb to
Yeah.
get up there and to do that for sure. I think for every business right now, every small business, right?
Yeah.
For sure. So, so what does the immediate future look like for you? We're on the cusp of summer starting, really getting into full swing. How busy are you? And what are the big stops, for this summer for you?
Busy. Definitely a lot of Milwaukee makers markets. I've got another Pride market at the end of the month here in June. It's kind of nice because I don't mind doing a lot more smaller markets.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Because for me, it's really about being seen and meeting people and kind of more of the outreach where I'm like, I don't, and the thing too is I really don't do outdoor with my stuff. It's all, packaged prints. Um, I've considered it, but I don't want to play that game where it's me in a good storm, even in a
Yeah.
the best tent that's weighted down. I just don't know how well I want to do that. So
I was gonna say, as soon as a strong wind hits, there's
yeah,
10% of the inventory is in the air,
yeah,
Yeah.
right?
yeah. And
Yeah.
that's the thing, it's all paper products. So I don't mind doing the smaller markets and stuff and kind of hitting it hard. The nice thing is my summer kind of died. I don't want to say dies down.
Hmm.
Spring is huge, fall is huge. Right now I'm going from like 5 markets a month, maybe to like 4, 3. I'll pick back up in September, October, November, December, where I'm doing literally like one every, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
8 or 9 markets a month, depending on the month. So
Jeez.
it'll definitely pick up for sure.
Yeah.
But the nice
Yeah.
thing is summer kind of dies down a little bit, which is honestly for me is the time where I go out and shoot a lot. You
Mhm.
know,
That's what
Yeah.
I was gonna ask actually.
yeah,
Yeah, if you use that time as more of like a focus on creating new product kind of thing.
yeah. Well, and even when I started, I didn't really do markets in January, February because I used that as time to kind of recoup from the holidays and
Mhm.
get all my new stuff processed, like open everything up in Photoshop, play with what I wanted to play with, get stuff ready for printing, figure out what my new pieces were going to
Hmm.
be, print them up and get everything ready for spring season. This was really the first year I started doing markets in January and February because there was opportunity to do some. And
Mhm.
so I just kind of found myself doing those on top of still planning my new shots and stuff like that. And it's not like I'm never not shooting. Um, that's kind of the thing with my cell phone. I always joke with people when they ask, where I take my photos or when I take my photos. Honestly, sometimes most of the time it's me and my partner out for dinner or, in Madison checking out State Street, stuff like that. My partner now
Hmm.
calls my phone. He's gonna hate I say this on here. He calls my phone Sheila. We were on an anniversary date in Madison, and I kept stopping on State Street to take pictures of neon. And he was like, "Hey, didn't know Sheila was coming along." So now I always joke that whenever we have a vacation together or something, Sheila comes with me,
It was
and she gets a lot more attention than he does. And
that's great.
but that's how it goes, because
Yeah.
it's just, and I don't plan anything out. I rarely plan anything out. Like I deliberately went to the public museum for a day just to putz around and get some shots, of like streets of old Milwaukee, the dinosaurs, stuff like that, just because I knew I wanted to get them before the museum transitioned to the new
Yeah.
space. But like, even we had some vacation. I had my first night owl burger ever, so I was getting pictures of the neon there and stuff. He's like, you really got to ask them if they can light that up at night. And I'm like, yeah, but they're never open at night. Like, why would I want a night shot? They're never open at night,
Yeah. For the record, I live so close to it. I still have not made it there yet. I think we talked about this one time,
Yeah.
that you and I I still have not made it there. One of these days I will get there before they close, because they close early every day.
Yeah,
So.
we've been together 7 years, and he's always ranted about it. And I was just so waved, and I was just like, it's just a burger. And then we went, and I was like, that's a damn good burger. And there was no way, I will make the suggestion, there's no way I could ever do a double patty burger, because the single is more than enough.
Game over. Yeah.
Yeah. Just trust me, just get the single.
That's right.
Okay.
I have to ask, if you're like at an event or like out and about, and people are like, "Hey, do you mind taking a picture for us?" Like, are you like, "Oh, it's game on"? Like, I'm about to turn this shit.
Yeah, it's funny, especially like when I'm with family or something at State Fair, and they're like, "Do you mind taking our picture?" I'm like, "I got this, guys. Just like I got this, and then they're like, "Oh, that looks really nice." And I'm like, "Damn it,
it does." Yes, it does.
Yeah, it does.
That's great.
It
does.
Really
that'll be $10 for that print, please.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Here's my Venmo. Thanks for letting me take this wedding photo. Like, whatever. Like,
you'll see it in the market later.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you for doing this. Speaking of storms, we just had some lightning and thunder hit, so I'm hoping that this is not the moment that I cut things out. But Mike, if people want to find out more about your photography and want to get some prints, where's the best place to go and connect with you and find you, and see everything that you're up to?
Honestly, social media, MBSquared photography on Instagram, MBSquared photo on Facebook. I do have a Square site as well. I sell through Square. So everything that I have available at the markets is available online as well. That's mbsquaredphotography.square.site. And then my portfolio site, michaelburmesch.com, is kind of just a combination of both my graphic work and photo work. So you can definitely find me on there. So there's plenty. I'm pretty well saturated. Even just a Google search, I've got a pretty good Google business profile going right now.
Perfect.
So,
okay. There you go. Well, thank you, like I said, once again for doing that. And if people want to find this podcast, if this is your first time watching, listening, however you're consuming it, thank you. If it's your 81st time doing it, thank you as well. We are the Hustling Sideways podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on X, we're on Instagram, we're on all of the social medias as well. TikTok, LinkedIn. I think I said them all. That's all of them. Yeah.
You got it.
Okay. If you want to be a guest on this podcast as well, you can send us an email. It's hustlingsideways@gmail.com. And Jim,
keep on hustling.
I'll see you next week.